Welcome to Masking and Unmasking, living and leading authentically and creating success on your terms. And I am Mandy Castile-Denny, and I'm going to be your host today. So everyone's probably wondering, like, who the heck is this person with their crazy blue hair? And I will tell you that in a minute. But first, I want to say, what are we going to be going over in this presentation? So there's three big things we're going to cover, and one is being able to recognize some of your own masks. Because sometimes I have learned in presenting on this topic now a few times that not everybody actually knows when they're masking or that they're masking at all. And so I'm here to kind of explore that with you and see, are you masking? Do you know people who are masking? And I also find that sometimes once you recognize one mask, because there are many different ones, you'll start recognizing more and more. One of the ways that I like to talk about on how do you not combat your masks, but how do you unmask is finding your joy. And so we're going to go over how to find joy or calm and contentment in your life, because usually it's really hard to mask when you are experiencing joy and contentment and sometimes happiness. And the other thing is we'll start to identify a few places where you can safely unmask, because we recognize that it's not always safe to unmask everywhere or with everyone. So we'll kind of explore what that could look like for you. Then we have to ask really quickly, what exactly is masking? Because not everybody is familiar with that term as well, even those working in the neurodiversity field. So one of the main things I got pulled up when I said, what is the definition of masking? And this one came up. Masking is a strategy used by some autistic people, consciously or unconsciously, to appear non-autistic in order to blend in and be more accepted in society. All about, they use the word autistic. And so it's very narrow definition. An analogy I like to use for masking is a lot of people, especially neurotypical people, will know the many hats we wear, right? So a lot of people are like, yeah, I have my work hat, I have my friend hat, I have my family hat. Well, that's all great, but it's not the same as masking. Masking is where you literally cover your face in a mask and you can't be seen. So hats are easy to take off and on. Masks are not. And masks truly hide who you are. And that's why I like this other definition better. Masking is when you hide parts of who you are in order to fit in. It can be adopting a personality that doesn't actually quite match who you really are. So you are being somebody different. Whereas when you wear a hat, you're still kind of you. And neurotypical people understand the hats we wear, but not necessarily the masking. And I want you to think about that. You hide parts of who you are. Actually, I did skip a slide. This slide, oh my gosh. Sorry about that, guys. Missed a slide. I was wondering, I was like, when do I introduce myself? Well, I'm Mandy. I am 46. I am autistic and have ADHD, so welcome to my brain. I do have anxiety, depression. I have complex PTSD and fibromyalgia. So those are some big things. I like to say that up front so you can understand sometimes why I will miss a slide and keep going and go back. And that I am definitely neurodivergent, and I am proud to be so because I like who I am and I like how I function and how I show up in the world. A little bit more is I have a master's in education, a bachelor's degree in environmental studies, and a minor in biology. And I kind of say that because I'm a huge environmentalist, and a big portion of my business is a kind of pulling that into it. I have two kiddos. My 19-year-old is autistic, trans, and has severe mental illness. So I have been parenting an autistic child for 19 years. I also have a 14-year-old son who is autistic and has ADHD. So he's kind of like just like me in so many different ways. So my life has been in this field dealing with all of the stuff that comes with autism and neurodivergence for a really long time. I am an entrepreneur as well, and I started my business in 2024, and it's called Blue Tulip Inclusive Education. And I offer individual as well as parenting coaching. I do outdoor programs for kids and families. My tagline is I help neurodivergent families thrive while being outside. And I am also doing speaking. Thank you, Joy. I also do speaking. I have done this presentation a few times. I'm doing it again tomorrow for like 48 people. It's going to be crazy. And I also do speaking around my signature program, which is Outside the Lines, Why Neurodivergent Kids Need Nature Now More Than Ever. And I am a writer, and I am working on my first book. And that's all I'm going to say about it. It's not going to come out for probably years, but I am working on that. So I love my children. I have an amazing rescue dog, and I just kind of love being and love working in this neurodivergent field. So I don't think anybody has questions on that. If you do, awesome. If not, keep going. You'll learn more about me as we go along. Part of this presentation is being very vulnerable about myself, because masking, when you think about it, is a very personal thing, and it's a very vulnerable thing. And I'm happy to share my journey with this. You don't need to share if you don't want to. I like it when people share, but I'm also very cognizant you do not have to. You can show up here exactly how you are. I'm very introvert friendly, as my friends and like to say, I collect introverts. And so, because I don't mind sharing for myself, I don't expect anybody else to. So went over what we did. We went over what masking is. Now we're going to kind of go into what does that actually look like? What does masking, and it says autism, but it really is a lot of people, a lot of neurodivergent folks, because even when you're ADHD, you can end up masking. A lot of it is where you are forcing yourself to do things that are not very comfortable for you. That's forcing eye contact. That's suppressing stemming behaviors. I tend to jiggle my leg a lot, and I usually have little fidget spinners. I am a mover, so I don't sit still very much. I know lots of people who are like that. It's also adjusting your facial expressions to match others. It is hiding special interests and pretending to like topics that others enjoy. A lot of people will do this when they first get into a relationship. We're like, oh yeah, I like football too. Oh yeah, I like that too. This is different because you're hiding what you like, right? If your special interest is trains and all you want to talk about is trains and you love all of that information, but you don't talk about it because you're afraid that they're going to judge you for it, that is hiding your special interests. I can talk about education and environmental education till the cows come home, but I'm not going to always do that, right? Being overly aware of the impressions you make on others. I just learned a new term about rejection sensitivity, and I think that's a lot on this one, where you are perceiving things with other people. You're hyper aware of that because you're afraid of rejection. I definitely have felt this a lot. And nowadays, I don't care as much, partly because with age comes wisdom, and you kind of just don't care anymore. You're like, oh, I'm tired of it. Researching social rules before events. This is a big one for me because I need to know where all the bathrooms are, the exits are, where are we going to be sitting, where are we going to be going. So it's not even just the social rules, but it's also like just the location. I also want to know, like, what is the dress code, because I want to make sure that I'm fitting into the dress code. The other two I have on here is repeating phrases that you have heard others use. So it's almost like practicing your phrasing. So like, oh, I know we're talking about this topic, so I know what to say. Also having social scripts prepared before interactions. That's a huge way that you're masking, because you're trying to seem other than yourself, really. So knowing those masking, what masking is, and knowing those, what I just talked about of what masking can look like, I want you to just take a minute. You can write it down if you have a piece of paper and a pen, or you can just think about it of, what do you do that you don't like to, or it makes you feel uncomfortable, but you feel like you have to do because it is expected? So I want you to think of some situations. It can be around work. It could be around family or friends, where you are masking. I'm thinking about, for me, one way that I do mask quite a lot is emotionally, where when people are saying, hey, how are you doing? That first mask is, I'm okay. How are you? that is a mask, because if you're not doing okay, and then in saying, I'm okay, and putting that smile on, that's the socially acceptable mask. I gave this presentation 2 weeks ago to a parenting group, and I was very honest at that time. I said, I'm not going to be able to mask for this presentation. I'm not going to be able to smile a lot because I was not doing okay. And I felt comfortable saying that at that time because it was about masking, and I was like, I'm not going to be able to mask in the way that I usually do when I give a presentation, because nobody wants a presentation from someone who's going to be serious and sad and really sharing that. I'm doing better. So this is not all a mask. I'm doing better from that point. But yeah, so I want you to think about that. Where do you mask? And if you would like to share, you can, but there is no requirement that you do.
I can share one, Mandy.
Yeah, go ahead, Leslie.
Mine is I'm actually very introverted and shy and do not like to have the spotlight. And so I have a job where I feel like I have to do all those things. And it puts a lot of anxiety, of course, that goes along with that. The script, the public speaking in front of large groups, just everything. And so that's a big one for.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of masking, especially with introverts. Definitely. Joy, go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah. So, with a name like Joy, this almost is just fate, and that I feel trapped in. Part of my just almost like trauma response that comes up when I meet any new person ever is like this instantaneous affect of like wide smile, excited tone of voice, even though I'm not necessarily feeling that way inside. And even though that's not an expression of my internal experience, it's what shows up. And within seconds, this literally happens every time I meet a new person. Not even like 50%, this is 100% of the time. They will always respond to me saying, "Oh, my name is Joy," and make some comment about like, "Oh, that fits you so much." And that's it. It stings every single time, because in that moment I am experiencing some of a trauma response that that's ultimately making them more comfortable with me than I am in that situation.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing. I could see that yes, having a name like that could definitely, where now it's almost like you have to, right? And that really, really sucks. Yeah. That's a perfect example of masking. Yeah. Thank you guys for sharing. Let's see. So I don't know why this keeps skipping multiple times. So I'm going to go back to me, and I want to talk about, where does masking start? When is that? And I recognize it's not the same for everybody. A lot of times little kids don't really mask, they're kind of showing up how they are. They're very authentic. They're very blunt and in your face, and it's really great. And for every person, masking will start at a different time. So for me, my mask did start at 4 years old for a very traumatic reason. And I developed a clown mask. I was the family comedian. I was the one who broke up the tension, who broke up serious situations. And so this was my safety net of my first mask. And it was when I was 4 years old. Now, not everybody's going to start or even know when they started masking, because a lot of times it's also, mine was a family thing, but society also puts masks on us. As a female, I know that there's also a lot of masking for young girls, that they have to be nice and soft and quiet and friendly and smiling all the time. And a lot of times we learn how to people please, Now for little boys, I noticed for mine, it's because I had 2 boys to start with, was that be tough, be strong, and oh, you're so strong and you can do these things. And you're asking them to not be vulnerable. You're asking little boys to not have emotions. That suck it up. So it's masks start kind of when society starts putting us into a box. And so that's my first mask. Well, then I added on my masks, where then you go to school. And so you have an academic mask. This is my academic mask I created, where you want to be a good student, right? Like, so mine was, I wanted to be a good student because I couldn't seem to fit in at home. And so I tried that. A lot of the masks also come about when you're trying to belong, when you're trying to find people who kind of will accept you. And you're like, okay, so mine was my academic mask. Only I found that I was not good at school. Academics was really hard for me with my ADHD, and I'm slightly dyslexic. So I was not one of the smart kids. I could not seem to fit into that group. And so then I brought out my sports mask. I joined sports in 4th grade, and I thought, yes, I will meet people who like me and who can accept me through sports. I am not a great athlete. I could not score. I could not get goals. I could defend, but I was not a great athlete. I was also the slowest person on the team. I could not run fast, no matter how hard I practiced. So I was also not like a great athlete. So that was not really my group either. So then I joined band and theater. Here is my band mask. It was okay. I practiced. I was okay. But I still didn't fit in because band people didn't like that I was also a sports person. So they were like, we don't like that. I tried theater, thinking everybody's masking here. So we're all the weird people and we're all weird. But I didn't really fit in there either. Because again, I was trying to hide who I really was by putting on these masks, right? And I put on all these masks to try to make friends. But because of my autism, I was too intense for most people. I was too much. I was super passionate. I was loud. I was blunt. I had no filter, as my mom said. My mom always was like, you have no tact. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. I'm just stating the truth. And I don't know why it's upsetting people. So it was all kind of a mess, right? And I know a lot of people resonate with this, that we're all kind of trying to fit in and find our people. And then you grow up and then you have this other mask you have to put on. And for me, there was 2 masks. One was my mom mask, trying to be that parent and show up as a parent how everybody else in the world expects you to be. That didn't work very well for me either. But in this context and for this talk, it's that work mask, right? And joy, I feel you because my work mask was always smiling, right? I can do that. I can do that. I can handle this, right? And it didn't work well for me. And that's one reason why I'm now an entrepreneur, is because I realized that putting the mask on that I can do anything and the person you can always come to and I can handle any situation was just not accurate. And it caused a lot of issues for me, right? And I recognize that a lot of people put on work masks. And in some instances, that's okay, right? Like, yeah, I want to show potential clients that I am competent, that I can handle different things. But it kind of can go too far. So I want you to think about right now, as entrepreneurs or in your job, how many of you mask every day? Where do you mask, right? Do you mask at home? Because some people find that they can't even unmask at home with your family. When you have young children, you don't want them to see you struggling. So you will put on that smiley face and be like, yes, I'm here for you kids. It's great. It's not real. At work, do you hide? And it's not even just hiding how you're feeling if you're doing bad, but you're also hiding what you're struggling with. You're hiding that, hey, I'm working on this project. It is so overwhelming because I can't manage all of the little tasks that are involved with that. Do you mask with friends? Do you hide your special interests? And do you do activities with them that you don't actually really want to do? Like me, I'm not a drinker. And so when we go to the bars and we go out and do those things, I'm actually not very comfortable with it. So I'm going to put on a mask to say, yeah, this is fine. But I'm not really fine with it. I would much prefer to go have coffee, or even hang out at a library or at a park. But if everyone suggests it, then I'll go along with it. Most people do mask at some point during their day, every day. But I have to ask the question, are there benefits to masking? Yes, we've talked about there's reasons to mask, and part of it's through social training, right? And expectations. But are there benefits? And I'm going to throw this out to everyone. Can anyone think of a benefit? And you can just hop on and unmute.
One that I found interesting is mental flexibility. And I have found that as a person who masks constantly, I am surprised when neurotypical people don't have that muscle of mental flexibility as much as those of us that are always having to be cognitively aware of this are.
Yeah, I like that. Mental flexibility. I'm writing that down because I hadn't heard that term. I like it. Dave, you had jumped off.
I mean, I don't know if it's a benefit or a negative, but like for me at least, I don't have to get into all of the details of what I am feeling at the time, you know, and so there is the ability because, and it's probably because I don't feel like some spaces are safe and things like that to do that. So it kind of creates a little bit of an out.
You brought up the word that I always think of, which is safety, right? Like we will mask, especially when it doesn't feel safe to unmask. If I'm in a room full of people who maybe, and I'm going to use this analogy, is politically very different from me, I will mask hard because I do not want to be attacked, right? I don't want that. And so I will mask and be like, nope, this is great. Everybody, yes, I am on board with all of you. I feel the same way you all do. And it is not true at all. But we need to do that for safety reasons. And for me, that was always the one that I could think of the most is safety, right? There are benefits sometimes, especially, and you mentioned, it's also to protect yourself. You don't have to go over explain. Like, I'm not going to tell everybody that I'm autistic because I don't want to sit there and explain it, right?
Right.
And so it is safe for me to not say anything because I can't do it all the time, right? So yeah, I do think that even though we speak about masking as negative, it's not always negative because it does serve a purpose. Yeah. But in going with that, what are the consequences to masking? What does it do to you to always be masking? And it causes a lot of damage in our bodies. This is a very interesting source that came out. It was in 2015, so I'd be really interested to know now after COVID how these numbers have increased. And this is an intersection of mental health with autism and gender. So anxiety levels go up dramatically for women and really high for men as well, a lot more than the general public. Depression rates are much higher. You're looking at like 35% for autistic women. You're looking at like 25% for autistic men. And look at how low it is for the general population. So masking really does cause a dissonance in yourself. And it's pretty intense. Also, I thought this was very interesting, bipolar disorder, because actually being bipolar and schizophrenia has been listed under neurodivergence. It's not just a mental health, your brain is differently wired completely. And so the levels of bipolar for autistic women is much higher, especially for those who are masking, and schizophrenia is higher. That kind of blew my mind. And those are not usually terms that you would associate with neurodivergence. So I wanted to bring that up. And then you have autistic burnout. And I did not know about this term until I want to say about a year ago when I experienced it. I'm hoping for the final time. And it's one reason why I left my job. But what is autistic burnout? Well, it's when autistic burnout is for people who are neurodivergent, and it spans a lot longer of a time. So it's not, oh, you're just down, or you're just dealing with this little thing. It can span months or years, and it is limiting your participation at work, at school, social activities. And it really impacts your quality of life. And what that can look like, it can look different for different people, but it has a flat mood. And I see this a lot in my older child who has experienced this, where their mood is just flat. They don't really experience a lot. You have a low attention span, exhaustion. You are scared to make commitments because it's too much for you to handle. You can be irritable, overwhelmed, or underwhelmed. This is the big one for me, was you lose interest in special interests, become unappealing. And for me, that was a shocker where I didn't want to go outside anymore. And that's a huge thing for me because I have always loved to go outside, and that is my medicine. You have a low capacity for socializing. I'm a huge socializer, but yep, I did not want to be around people anymore. And you have this unshakable and constant anxiety, you know, and I really do feel like autistic burnout is life is too much. And it's not even just the feelings of sadness or any of that, but it's just too much. And it doesn't go away with a good night's sleep, and it doesn't go away with a 3-day vacation, you know, or even a 10-day vacation. That's great, but your life is still too much. And this significantly increases with people who do mask a lot. So for me personally, what changed? Well, some of the things that changed for me was seeing my children suffering, seeing my children growing up and trying on different masks to get by. My older child masked really well and I didn't see it. But when my younger one started to try to mask too, that's what hit me hard. And I am happy to say right now at 14, he does not mask hardly at all. And it is amazing and great. And his friends also are not masking as much. And I think it's partly because society is accepting more and more of neurodivergence. So that was one big thing that changed for me. The other thing was I was in a workplace that wanted me to add yet another mask. And they wanted me to stop fighting the system. They hired me to be an advocate, and then they wanted me to stop being an advocate. And that just was too much for me. It was way too much for me. They were like, you need improvement. I'm like, no, I do not. You need to change your expectations of me. And, you know, also going into perimenopause, I just had no more fucks left to give. I had no more fucks left to give them. It was done. I was at my capacity and I did burn out. And so that's what really changed for me. And I decided that I was no longer gonna mask for most of the time. I couldn't. And I learned also that once you start seeing your mask and you take it off a little bit here and there, you don't want to put it back on. You don't want to put that back on you. And so I left my job. I went out on FMLA and I left and I said, no more. I dyed my hair blue because that was I have no more fucks left to give to any stereotypes or anything that I need to go into the box. And for me, it's been life-changing. It has been life-changing. And my biggest unmasking for me, which was surprising, was I've been doing this business school for a year and meeting up with all these people. They're all entrepreneurs. It's not a typical business school. And we went to we were doing an in-person event, and we had been in groups all day, and it's very intense. It's like, it's such an intense day. Usually it's 9 hours. And at the end of the day, they're like, hey, guess what? We're going to all go downstairs and we're going to have some fun together. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so exhausted and I don't really want to people anymore, but fine. Some of these people are cool. So we went down and they set up different activities, and one activity is where you're going to pitch different crazy ideas. So you're going to pitch, you know, why everyone should buy a penguin in a suit, like just really ridiculous things. And I was like, that looks fun. I don't know if I can handle that. And so then they also had bingo. And I was like, I think I'm going to do some bingo. And then they had some other activity, which nobody went to. And I did bingo, and bingo is very low key, right? It's low key. And I was like, okay. And it was a bunch of the older people. And it wasn't a very big group. And the other group was much bigger. And they became really loud. And we couldn't hear the bingo being called over this loud people. And I kind of took my mask off and I started being silly. And I started sing-songing the bingo cards. B24, A13, like, or not A, but, you know, N. And I started doing that. And I was having fun. I was finally having fun doing something, and everyone else was kind of enjoying it. And I was just doing that and bringing energy to this really kind of sometimes really boring activity. And someone from the other group looked over and she was like, neurodivergent much? And I was like, yes. I unmasked and I didn't care. And I focused on what brought me joy. And it was kind of liberating to just be me. And people were okay with it. She called me out on it, but I owned it, and it was kind of great. And I was happy. So that's what I want us to do right now. We're going to start focusing on that joy, because when you are in your joy, you cannot mask. And I unmasked in that moment, and I was having fun and I was feeling joy. So let's now talk about finding your joy. And Joy is right here, which is great. So we already found her. We're done. Everyone, we can just go home. If only it was that easy, right? So I would like you, oops. I'm trying to move my videos around. They're all weird. So where and what brings you intense joy? But I want to stop right there because I realized, and someone else mentioned this to me when I gave this talk and previously, and she's like, what if you don't feel joy? Because if you're in autistic burnout, you're not going to always feel joy. And I thought that was a really great point. And I was like, then what do you do that at least makes you feel calm or even slight contentment where you feel okay? So if you can't identify with joy or happiness, then think about a time when you can feel calm and contentment. And I want you to either write down or think about it. What do you love doing? What resets your nervous system? What fills your cup? And that's a term that's used a lot because in our world, like you have this cup of stuff, right? And hopefully the positives what fill up the cup and the negatives are what drain out of the cup. And so sometimes you can start your day with just a very small amount in your cup, right? What can you do to put more into it? Because it kind of will drain out and you'll end up sipping some of it and being gone. And so maybe it's been a long time since you have felt joy. So then where can you breathe even just a little bit? Because it's in those moments where you can breathe that you can unmask. And again, it's hard to mask when you are filled with joy and love or contentment and calm. For me, this is my joy list. Camping in nature. Nature has been the thing that has always consistently brought me joy throughout my entire life. When I was a young little neurodivergent girl in the backwoods of Maine and no one understood me, I could go outside and I could go into the woods and I could just be, and I could have no masks. So that was one place that even to this day, I do feel. My family, my immediate family, I can unmask. They are a really safe place. And my kids can unmask with me. Traveling, because nobody knows you. And so you can kind of unmask and just be yourself. I have some friends that I can unmask with. Cooking, I can unmask and just kind of make mistakes and be silly and crazy. Reading and learning, when I'm reading, I'm unmasked, right? And a good cup of coffee. So when I do all of these things, I do feel joy. I do feel authentic me, and I feel safe. So I'm hoping that you're thinking of some other places that you can do that, even if it's just in the shower, when you're washing your hair and you're alone. Can you do it in a silly way? Do you do it in a silly voice? I sometimes talk to myself, sing, I'll sing to myself, and even if I'm off a key. So it's looking for those small pockets or even big pockets where you can be you and not be afraid of judgment or ridicule or like you're going to be attacked. I obviously did not double check this spelling. Sorry about that. I'll have to change it. So if you think about how does your job make you feel joy? So we're entrepreneurs or you work in a job, and I worked in a job, and we work a lot, right? That is a huge portion of our time is working. In that work, can you just let go and be yourself? As an entrepreneur, that is kind of the goal, right? That you can be doing a job that does bring you some type of joy, brings you some type of satisfaction, but can you do it in a way that you can be yourself? For me, I am myself in my job. I am my brand, and I pretty much feel like I can be myself and I don't have to mask. I can show up very vulnerable. I can show up however I am. But I'm building that. That was not the case in my previous jobs at all. Can you let go and just be yourself? I'm hoping for you guys that the answer, or you people, I want to be correct. I'm hoping for you that you have thought of some places you can, because it's important to have those places. Unmasking is power. I want you to think about this. Unmasking is power, bringing forth your authentic power, because where your power is when you remove the mask. Think of your gifts, your superpowers. What amazingness you can share when you feel safe to really bring forth all that amazingness that's in you, because we're masking it, we're hiding it, right? And I want you to imagine a world where no one had to mask. where your authentic self was celebrated and embraced. I mean, just for me, it's mind-boggling. It kind of blows my mind when I think about it. Because think of the power you would share. I think of my kids. I think of my younger son who doesn't know how to mask, and his friends don't know how to mask, and they're all this little weird ball of 14-year-olds, and it's crazy. And I think about what they're going to bring to the world. Think about if businesses accepted you and allowed you to thrive as you are, and the teams that would be built. It's pretty incredible when you think about it. So it's powerful. Where can you unmask? Where do you feel safe and most authentic? It kind of goes along with the joy list, but I want you to even feel more specific. Like, I want you to actually think about locations and people and places where you don't feel judgment and people who love all the weirdness and fun you bring to the world. I have actually joined a networking group that's called She Goes High, and it's for neurodivergent business women. And that is a place where it's not about your pitches and it's not about necessarily the work you do. It's about showing up authentically and just being there. And you can show up late, you can leave early, you can show up in your pajamas. Like, it's just a place that I don't fear judgment. I can sit there and fidget a lot, and I don't fear judgment. So I want you to think about those places. And if you don't have any places where you do feel safe, where could you potentially create one? Even if it's just in your car alone, because we all should have at least one or two spaces where we do feel safe. And hopefully you can find one person where maybe you talk to them about your neurodivergence. Maybe you share that you've been masking with them, but would like to see if maybe you could unmask. Having that conversation. Maybe there's someone at work where you have a shared special interest and you could totally geek out. That's what I want you to think of. So I'm going to do a really quick recap here because I do want to leave room for any questions or comments or anything that you guys would like to bring up. We've covered a lot. We've shared your masking, where it might have started, how and when you might be masking now, what brings you intense joy or contentment, because that's really important to hold on to. And we started thinking a little bit about where you can unmask and where that safety spot might be. Now, these are just surface level things. They're just thoughts. But I was wondering if you like this experience and you want to dive deeper. I'm just going to share this really quickly. I don't want to spend too much time on it. But I am running a masterclass, and it's the Joy of Being You masterclass. And it's in 2 weeks, Thursday, October 16th. It's via Zoom. It's a $40 investment to you. I have created this beautiful workbook that you can get along with it. And you will explore this a little bit more, and we'll go more into depth. It's an hour and a half long. And to explore who you are, what your values are, what roles masks have played in your life, how they're impacting you individually, and then how you can start growing these safe spaces. And space is very limited. We don't do more than 10 people at a time because it's a very intimate thing. And again, it's very introvert friendly as well. So that is what I am offering you guys today, is this masterclass. And I've run it. This will be my second time running it. And the first version went really, really well and was pretty transformative to a few people. I have a whole list of resources of all of the different things, and I could actually probably do 10 slides on the resources that I've used for this information. I do recommend Unmasking Autism by Devin Price and Divergent Minds by Janara Nuremberg. Those are two really great books. And Autism and Heals by Jennifer Cook O'Toole is really great for adult women who are late diagnosed. And then these are the other places that I found all my information from. So that is my presentation. And my question to you is to mask or not to mask? Hopefully you'll decide well. And so I'm opening it up to questions or anything.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Do you do others of those master's classes? I can't make it on the 16th, but I'd love to do that. And how would I find those times? On your website?
Yes, it's definitely going to be listed on my website. And when you go to my website, if you want to sign up for my newsletter, I'll be sending out more information as I do more. Because yes, I've been asked that a bit. And so I might start doing maybe once a month. I don't know. I have a lot of ideas and a lot of information to share. And I love supporting people on their journeys through this. So yeah, I hope to have more offerings.
Awesome.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, mine was essentially the same question because, of course, like 16th is a little too fast, but I'm definitely interested in seeing you do it again.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to pose a question and try to be succinct with it. But as an entrepreneur, I think like this is a very interesting piece of things. I guess the question is how to go about navigating the challenges of being unmasked and being authentic while also still to some degree catering to an audience and making sure to find that weird Venn diagram where their needs and who you are truly but also in my experience oftentimes there's just a lot of the rest of me that maybe isn't going to fit the space or the time or the setting or the audience. And that's something that I feel like there's got to be an answer to somewhere. I'd love an equation that works every time. I know it's not like necessarily a realistic thing. I'd love some guidance from other experiences. Like, what are kind of those key questions? And how do you kind of take care of yourself when you realize you do have to hold back a little bit?
That's a great question. Thank you, Joy. It's going to be very individual for each person, right? And it's how vulnerable do you want to be? And what is your goal, right? It definitely comes down to what is your goal? Who is your audience? What is the objective? And then also, how okay are you with revealing what you're going to reveal? Obviously, I'm very okay with revealing a lot of things. That's part of my neurodivergence. I actually don't have social fear. So partly because I don't understand social rules, and so I'll just share till the cows come home. And that does bite me in the butt sometimes, more often than not. But it kind of comes down to what it is you do want to do. And exploring it and experimenting with it, because so you give a talk or you're in front of an audience and you do just a little thing that makes you uncomfortable, but it's not like the whole kit and caboodle, and see how that makes you feel and see what the feedback is. And then you can just try a little bit more. And, and so it's like gauging that aspect of it. Also, when you're going to have to hold back, again, go back to that joy list and really infuse that and use that to fill you back up. Because you're right. And that's why I kind of put with the joy list, because we're not always going to be able to do that unmasking. We're not going to always be able to be our authentic selves. But if you're having joy every day, that's filling you up, it makes it a lot more bearable and doesn't feel so uncomfortable, because you're like, yep, here in this minor situation, I have to do this one thing. That's okay, because I get to do all this other stuff over here, because you're right. In business, we do have to present, and we need to try to get clients, and that is okay. Yeah. So that's my suggestions, I guess, is make sure you're cultivating that joy so that you can still feel that, but also just experiment a little bit, As an introvert, I know that can be hard. And so you're going to feel like you're not going to be authentic, but just share one little thing that maybe you haven't and see how that goes. Because I have talked to a lot of people where the little more vulnerable they're being, they realize that people respond more positively to you, the more vulnerable you are. And as you get more comfortable with that, then it opens that up to feeling more authentic more of the time. I hope that helps.
Yeah, I like that. I like the idea of just, keeping in mind that there are other places to find the joy, and then making that intentional effort to go to those places for rejuvenation. Because I know we all get these moments, maybe. I'm going to generalize. We all get these moments where we are in a meeting and we're feeling it on fire, and as soon as it's done, it is way too peoply. To be functioning might not be happening for the next 30 minutes to 2 hours because of that. So finding those, where can I go right now? That is joy.
And schedule that into your process too, right?
Yeah.
So hey, I'm going to have this speaking gig, but then 2 hours after, I'm not doing anything, and just kind of know that about yourself, and just because people are respectful and they're like, hey, I can't people anymore. Then they're like, okay, I'll come back at you later.
Right, absolutely. I think one other question, and I don't want to take up other people's time with questions. So why don't I just mute myself for a second, and then I'll jump back in with my question.
Okay, that sounds good. I know I do the same thing. Yeah. I don't know if Shayna, you have any question, or Leslie, if you have any questions or anything that's come up.
I'm good. Thank you so much. This was really, really helpful and great presentation.
Thank you, Leslie.
I agree. I don't have any questions, but this has been very, very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, usually this gets people's minds going. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for coming in and